Should we start with Cambridge Analytica? I know that's what you're thinking, isn't it? Yeah. Let me just ask for a quick show of hands. How many people think that Cambridge Analytica swung the election for Donald Trump? It's a small number. It's maybe a quarter of the audience think that. I think that they did, and I'm going to try and convince you why and how and why I think it really does matter, but not in the way that a lot of people say. I think there has been an awful lot of nonsense spoken about Cambridge Analytica lately. The idea that they have developed some incredibly powerful psychological warfare tool that has managed magically to manipulate millions of people into voting for something, I think is ludicrous. I think it's often used at the moment by liberals as a convenient excuse as to why Donald Trump won, and thereby avoids them asking much harder questions about why their candidate lost. But that doesn't mean to say that Cambridge Analytica was not incredibly important. Let me explain why and how. I don't think they used psychographic techniques to manipulate people in the US election. I think what they did was actually far simpler, and most of it perfectly legal. Cambridge Analytica had built up a very large database using commercially available data sets, your spending patterns, some of your web browsing stuff, things that people can buy. And they used pretty standard techniques in advertising to try to work out what it is that people care about, what motivates them, what sort of things that they're interested in. Pretty standard stuff for marketing and advertising companies. They do it all the time. 13 staff members from Cambridge Analytica went to work in the Donald Trump campaign team in Project Alamo in Texas. And there they worked alongside Facebook employees who were seconded in, Google employees who were seconded in, and the RNC data analysts, the Republican data analysts. And essentially what they did, or basically all political parties now do, is they try to build maps of persuadable voters, people who they thought could be persuaded to vote Donald Trump. And over the course of their analysis, they built up several what they called universes, groups of people with particular interests, like mothers that are worried about childcare, people that are worried about gun control, and so on, and then just targeted them relentlessly with messages about those questions, those issues, those considerations. But what they did importantly was they very quickly identified that there were enough persuadable voters in particularly Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that they thought could be persuaded to vote for Trump. Everyone at the time thought those three states were out of the reach. This was the blue wall of Clinton territory. But Cambridge Analytica data analysts said, no, not really. We actually think there's probably enough persuadable Donald Trump voters in each of those three states. They advised Brad Parscale, who ran the Trump campaign team, to switch a lot of his money, his resource, into those three states, and they started bombarding people with adverts. Bear in mind that Donald Trump won those three states by less than 1 percentage point. Bear in mind that Facebook's own internal research, Wisconsin was, I think, 11 or maybe it was 20,000 votes only. If Clinton had won those three states, she would be president. Bear in mind that Facebook's own internal white paper found that Donald Trump's team made significantly better use of Facebook, but especially custom audience is a particular type of advertising technique that you use. And I think you can make a pretty good case that Cambridge Analytica made the difference in the Trump campaign, but not by using clever, sophisticated, mind-manipulative tools, by getting to enough of the right people at the right time with the right messages, just enough to swing it, just a small amount, 1 or 2 percentage points is all that it takes. That's what I think happened. And I think we're missing the point if we start worrying too much about psychographics and personality-based profiling, although I do think that is where we are heading, by the way. I think in the next 10 or 15 years, we will see a lot of advances in the way that we are being targeted and being profiled, unless regulation gets there first. But that's the logic of modern advertising, is to, of course, learn more and more about you, because then you can be served up better adverts, which means you're more likely to click, which means you're more likely, or Facebook or Google or whoever, is more likely to be able to sell good adverts for you. So it's going to improve, but I don't think it's what made the difference, psychographic, personality-based profiling in this case. But that doesn't mean we should be complacent about it, because I think the general drift towards more and more personalised data profiling and personalised micro-targeting is actually anathema in many ways to democracy, especially as it continues to evolve and improve. Because what essentially it does is it means rather than having a big public sphere where we all discuss all the great issues of the day, the logic and the tendency is to target people with just very personalised messages to them that flies under the regulator's radar in a way we can't see. So there isn't that big public debate that we all sort of care about. There's millions of very small private debates going on. How do you hold a politician to account well if they're sending 1 million personalised messages to 1 million different people? And bear in mind, this data collection frenzy has really only just got started. It's not going to be long before what you eat will be recorded by your smart fridge, and your voice tone will be recorded by your personal AI assistant, and where you're driving to work will be recorded by your smart car. Does anyone really think that politicians wouldn't use that data if they thought that it'd give them an edge? If they thought they could work out that you're more likely to vote for a right-wing candidate when you're hungry because you're angry, and angry people are more right-wing, and so let's target them at just before dinner time with an advert about immigration. So I think that the way to think about what's happened with Cambridge Analytica is what is the very basis of this advertising model and micro-targeting actually doing to how we understand democracy and how it works. Because think about this, I have never known elections that have been so disputed as Brexit and Trump, where people have just considered it to be illegitimate, that they think it's been stolen. And I think this is a really important part of the story.